Hello everyone. If you're interested in learning more about the passive voice in English grammar, please watch this video. There are links in this video which will be available below in the description on the YouTube page for this video. Okay, so the passive voice. This is all about what is receiving the focus of attention in the sentence. So with the active voice, that's the way that we usually talk or write. The subject of the sentence is the person or animal or thing that is doing the action. So we call this the agent or the doer of the action. The verb appears in its usual conjugations depending on the tense. So this is basically everyday sentences with everyday verbs. The subject can be animate, which means human or animal, or inanimate, which can mean plant or thing or concept. It can be a proper noun, which is the capital letter for the name of a company or a person or place, or it can be a common noun. The noun can be singular or plural, counter noun count, concrete or generic. So basically any type of noun can be the subject in the active voice. Here are some examples. Darwin studied the fauna of the Galapagos Islands. So Darwin is the subject. It is a proper noun because there's a capital D and it's the name of the person. The verb is studied, so that is the action that Darwin did. So Darwin is doing the activity of studying. The election bothered Nancy. So the election is not human. It is an activity or a concept, and it is the subject of the sentence. The verb bothered is the creating the emotion or doing the action, and Nancy is the unfortunate victim. The third example, miners extract diamonds in South Africa. So miners is the group of people who are doing the job. Their job is to extract. So they are doing the activity of extracting to the diamonds in South Africa. Another important aspect of the active voice is what comes after the verb. So here we have the fauna. This is what receives the activity of the studying. So this is the object of the sentence. Nancy is the object of bothered, and diamonds is the object of extract. So in active voice, the object is the receiver of the action. Now let's look what switches when we get to the passive voice. So let's look at what happens in the passive voice. In the passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action, not the doer. So that's the important contrast here. And in a sentence with the passive voice, the agent or the doer might not even be mentioned. So, and the agent or doer, if it is mentioned, appears after in a phrase that begins with by. It's called an adverbial prepositional by phrase. With passive voice, the verb to be is the main verb that shows the verb tense of the sentence. So what happens is auxiliary to be is conjugated according to the correct time frame, and then the past participle of the action verb is added. Again, the subject can be animate or inanimate, proper, common, singular, plural, count, noun count, concrete, or generic. So let's look at some examples here. All right, so the subject is the fauna, and we have actually all of this, the fauna of the Galapagos Islands. So that all of that is the subject. Then we have the verb to be. In this case, it's simple past. Then we have studied. The ed is the past participle of study. regular verbs, the past participle is ed. Irregular verbs, you're going to have to look them up if you don't know. So, for example, the past participle of sing is sung. The simple past is sang, and the simple present is sing. So this third one is the past participle. So irregular verbs have many different spellings and styles of past participles. Here I have the participle phrase that begins with by, the prepositional phrase that begins with by, and so this is the doer of the action. The action was studied, and the fauna is the subject, but it is the receiver of the action. Nancy was bothered by the election. So in this case, we have simple past was, present past participle ed, and we have the prepositional phrase that begins with by. So the election is the agent or the doer, and Nancy is the receiver. The last one here, diamonds are extracted in South Africa. Notice that we do not have this phrase. We just have it empty. So it's possible, remember, to not even mention the agent or the doer. This happens when we can kind of guess or infer who does the work. Diamonds are extracted. Well, we know that diamonds cannot just be collected by anybody, that we need specially trained people to take the diamonds out of the earth. So we can guess that those are going to be miners or engineers or something like that. So we don't have to say the by phrase. So diamonds is the subject, the grammar subject, and it is the receiver. So let's just compare here. Darwin studied the fauna of the Galapagos Islands. That's active voice. Passive voice is the fauna of the Galapagos Islands was studied by Darwin. The election bothered Nancy. Nancy was bothered by the election. Diamonds in South Africa are extracted by miners. Okay, so this was past tense, this was past tense, and this was present tense. In these examples, was is past tense, was is past tense, are is present tense. So the verb to be is the verb that shows the verb tense. Here are so many different verb changes that you can do with passive voice. So you can use modals like can, may, might, should, would, could, etc. Simple present. With the modals, be is not changed, and this is still the past participle. Simple present tense, are is simple present. You could also use is if the noun is singular. Present perfect, we use have been, and then the past participle. Present progressive, are being, and then ed in the past participle. Simple past, we use were. You could also use was if the subject is singular. The past participle doesn't change. There's two ways to make the future, are going to be and will be. So notice that there's no change to be, but that we use future expressions here. And then the past participle stays the same. So with passive voice, the verb tense that changes is be. The past participle stays the same always. It doesn't matter what the tense is. Here are some common passive voice verbs, And in some cases, we don't have an active voice for that. So, for example, be born. Okay, so you can say, I was born in 2000. All right. So we're going to use past tense because the event happened in the past. We never say, I am born, because it cannot happen today. You can say, the baby will be born if you're talking about a new baby. It's never possible to say by somebody here because we don't need to say by my mother because we understand who gave birth to us. And the active voice, my mother bore me in 2000, we never talk about the mother's physical activity of giving the baby into the world. So that's why we always use was and born. Or if it's twins, you could say the twins were born if you have two babies at the same time. The next verb, be fined. So fined, of course, is when you have to pay money. So you could say, I was fined $100 by the police. So these parentheses mean that it's optional. You could just say, he was fined, period. He was fined $10, period. Or he was fined by the police. So you can just play around and have different options. With shipped, meaning sending a package or a box or something like that, you could say at the time or how was it shipped. So the box will be shipped at 4 o'clock tomorrow by courier. With scheduled, you don't have any other options. You can just say the class was scheduled. I guess you could say at 6 o'clock or something like that. To be staffed. So the project was staffed with 10 employees. The project was staffed with 2 doctors. So you can talk about the role. To be suspended. So you could say the test was suspended. Or be jailed. The criminal was jailed. So these are all common passive voice verbs that are used a lot. Next is some very important information. For passive voice, a verb must be transitive. Transitive means that it has to be followed by an object. So that's a noun or a noun phrase. If the verb cannot be followed by an object, it is called an intransitive verb. So intransitive verbs cannot be used in the passive voice. So let's look at this link that I have here. Okay, so here are some intransitive verbs. So I cannot say he coughed something. I cannot have an object here. I cannot say he coughed air or he coughed spit. It's never possible to have an object after he coughed. You can say he coughed a lot, or he coughed often, or he coughed hard. But all of these are adverbs. They are not objects. So any intransitive verb can never be passive voice. For passive voice, we must have an object. For passive voice, we must have transitive verbs. So here is a list of transitive verbs. This link is in the description on the YouTube page below the video. So let me just look at these with you. Okay, so for example here, my friend read the newspaper. So read is the past of to read, and the subject is my friend, and the object is the newspaper. The teenager earned a speeding ticket. We have subject, verb, and object. With transitive verbs, we can change this to passive voice. I can say, the newspaper was read. So here's the verb to be in the past. Read, past participle is irregular, so it stays the same, by my friend. Or a speeding ticket was earned. Okay, this story is in the simple past, so then I need the verb to be simple past. Ed, past participle of earned. And then I can say by the teenager. And here are those examples exactly presented below. Okay, so on this link, you can find many different transitive verbs that you can look at. In most dictionaries, you can see the abbreviation VT beside a verb that is transitive or has a transitive meaning. So if you don't know if a verb is transitive or if you can use it in the passive voice, just look in the dictionary for this abbreviation. Okay, what is the meaning of the passive voice? So what happens is the focus is adjusted. That's the most important part. The focus is adjusted. So these sentences have no active voice, but listen to this. The cat is under the blanket. The focus is on the cat. The blanket is over the cat. The blanket is receiving the focus. Okay, so passive voice is very similar because the focus shifts to the new subject. Okay, so the passive voice defocuses or takes the focus off of the agent, or another word was the doer. Okay, the technician fixed the washing machine. Active voice, the focus is on the technician. The washing machine was fixed by the technician. The focus is now on the washing machine. And actually, I can just erase this, and this is a correct sentence. The washing machine was fixed, period. And I don't have to mention who did it. This way, the listener or the reader can just assume or guess from the situation who did the work. Okay. Only transitive and ditransitive verbs can be made into passive voice. Ditransitive verbs are verbs like give. Okay, active voice. The girl gave the boy a gift. Okay, so here I have subject, girl, gave, verb. Next I have boy. This is the indirect object. And a gift, this is the direct object. So now I can change the sentence to be a gift was given to the boy by the girl. Or I can say the boy was given a gift by the girl. So in these two sentences, I can have a different focus because I have indirect object is focused here and direct object is focused here. I have to say to the boy for the indirect object, but I do not say to a gift. I just use a gift for the direct object. Okay, so what I'd like you to try and do, if you want, is go to this random verb picker and you will be able to choose a verb. All right, so just spin the circle. And now you have the verb love. Okay, use this verb in an active voice sentence. So you can say, my sister loves candy. And then change it to the passive voice. Candy is loved by my sister. Okay, so here's the simple present. Here the verb be is simple present. Okay, you can write as many sentences as you like. Please include your name and your email if you'd like me to give you some feedback. Or log into the Padlet app and create a free membership with Padlet and put your name in. And then when you share your sentences, I will be able to see your username. So I'll ask you to go to this website, and all you need to do is click on the little circle here, or just click anywhere on the screen. And you'll be able to write. So you can say, you can leave subject empty, and you can say, my sister loves candy. Candy is loved by my sister, for example. And then if you want to change the color, you can do that and publish. Okay, and then I'll be able to see your sentences here. All right, so I'm happy to try and give you some feedback. Now, I just want to show you some things that are a little bit more complicated about the passive voice, and this should help you make better sentences. So these are called semantic constraints on passive voice. That just means certain situations or certain verbs or words are better in passive voice, and in some situations, passive voice isn't really that good. So the first situation is if your subject is very specific, if the passive voice subject, so that means the receiver, is very specific, that's really good. So this poem is a specific poem. Was written by Robert Frost. That sounds good. Poems were written by Robert Frost. This sentence is so-so because it's too general. It's not specific about one poem. Okay, other things are with stative verbs. So a stative verb is a verb that shows emotions, thinking, the senses. Okay, so in this case, when you have an indefinite agent, or the object of by, the passive voice is better. So Arthur Ashe was liked by everybody. This is good because we don't know who everybody is. It's very general. Arthur Ashe was liked by me. This is very so-so because it's too specific. So in my sentences, the candy is liked by my sister. My sister is very specific. So this sentence is actually so-so. It would be better to say the candy is liked by many children. This is not specific. This is indefinite. So that makes a much better passive voice sentence. The movie was seen by everyone in town. Much better. The movie was seen by Jim. Not good. It's better just to use the active voice and just say Jim saw the movie. That makes more sense. Okay, if the verb shows a physical action, it's much better in passive voice than a mental action or an emotional action. So the ball was kicked. This is very physical. So that's great. This one, wanted, this is an emotion. The ball was wanted by the other team. Not good. That's so-so. So the passive voice is correct, but it sounds very strange and very uncomfortable to listen to that or to read that. A few other things. Some transitive verbs are not always used in passive voice because they are used statively. So 2 gallons of water are held by the watering can. That's strange because the watering can is actually not holding. We have people's hands are holding the watering can, but I cannot say the watering can is holding because it doesn't have human hands. Okay, $5 is cost by the parking fine. Not correct. Lori is resembled by her father. Not correct. He is suited by the plan. Not good. A car is had by him. Not good. So these few verbs are not really excellent verbs for passive voice. It's better to use active voice. The watering can holds 2 gallons of water. The parking fine costs $5. Her father resembles Lori. The plan suits him. He has a car. So active voice is going to be much better for those verbs. Then something very special, which if you never remember, that's okay, but you might be curious about another kind of verb called ergative verbs. So ergative verbs can have no agent, but they can be in the active voice. So for example, the story began. Okay, so the story is actually not human and cannot do the activity of beginning. The story was begun by the author. That's passive voice. So I could say the author began the story, or the story was begun by the author, or with ergative verbs, I can say the story began, and that's correct. So all of these verbs are ergative verbs, and it's possible to use them in active voice. The balloon burst. Very good. The snow melted. Very good. Passive voice, the balloon was burst by the dog, or the snow was melted by the sun. It's not so common. It's correct, but using them as the subject is much better, even though it is a non-agent subject. Here's many more ergative verbs. The cake baked at 300 degrees. The cake was baked by the kids. Or the car turned slowly, or the car was turned by the driver. The boat sailed across the lake, or the boat was sailed by the sailor. So again, ergative verbs make more sense to have a non-agent be the subject and for the verb to be used in active voice. This PowerPoint is available at the link in the YouTube video page below this video. So you can actually download this PowerPoint yourself for your own use. Please comment on the video, send me a note, ask me questions. I'm happy to help. Thank you very much.